everyone to Bodycraft's Unfiltered Mama's Roundtable. Unlike the picture-perfect portrayals often seen, this roundtable offers a space for raw conversations about the challenges, changes, and unexpected aspects of being a mother. Today, we're thrilled to have a fantastic group of women join us for the Unfiltered Mama's Roundtable. Welcome, ladies. Very, very happy to have you all here. So leading the way of this panel is my own mother, Mrs. Manjul Gupta, the visionary founder of Bodycraft, a lady who's a true definition of strength. Every day is a learning day with my mom, Mrs. Neena Nair, my second mom, my mother-in-law, though I don't like the word in-law. She's CHRO with 24/7, globally leading HR and learning and development for the organization. We have Mrs. Lygia, a renowned nutritionist from Qua Nutrition and mother of two beautiful children, beautiful boys, Lygia. We also welcome Tanvi Mehta, a popular internet personality, influencer, though I'm sure your day job involves for a lot more, and a mom to a delightful little girl. Bringing the laughs is Ruby Chakravarti, a stand-up theatre artist and a super fun mama. Two children, a boy and a girl. With a heart of gold, we have Dr. Aloma Lobo, who runs a wonderful charity focused on child adoption of abandoned children. And finally, the powerhouse in the world of sports and nutrition, Ananya. While not yet a mom herself, she brings invaluable knowledge to our discussion purely from the number of mothers she's associated with. We're so excited to hear everyone's insights and experiences through this roundtable series, and hopefully conversations which are going to be absolutely unfiltered and from the heart. Let's start this discussion by acknowledging that motherhood is often portrayed as a picture-perfect journey of bliss. While it is a transformative experience, the realities of the physical and mental changes can be truly overwhelming. How does this portrayal differ from your own experiences? Can you share some personal anecdotes or challenges you faced in this area? Ruby?
Well, I got married at the ripe old age of 18, and till 23, the ripe old age of 23, I didn't have kids. So it was, oh my God, she can't have kids. But then ultimately, I did have two children. And I also am a lawyer, surprise, surprise. So I used to go to my law firm. And so my mother-in-law had a very nice take. She said, nahi, beta, ho jayega in time, because, you're so, lawyer mein karke baat karna padta na, to hormones get confused. So I was not sure whether expression. But then I have a beautiful daughter, and I'm a grandmother now. I have a beautiful granddaughter also, Alaya, and I have a son. Of course, the challenges are huge because I think they set us up, by singing songs and saying, "Ma, tu sab kuch samajhti hai, ma," and all. And we don't have, our hormones do the job. Correct me if I'm wrong, Aloma. We have so much of estrogen, so otherwise we'd murder them, every 3 hours when they ask for dudu and all that, we're so tired. No, but jokes apart, it is extremely tough because at least my daughter's generation is a little different. I'm sure yours will be too. But my generation is, the bulk of the work came onto us. So if we were professionals, that had to be put aside, and the children's job was yours, aurat ka kaam hai type of thing. I was very, very, very happy to do it because God gives us hormones to do it, see. But it was tough, and my journey, though really delightful, it was not idyllic, but it was delightful. I will do it all over again. And my journey was a little different because I have a son who is gay. And he was, I mean, I don't know how moms say they don't know, because when he was 3 and 4, he was a big orangutan of a boy with curly hair and dancing black eyes, but I knew he was different. So, I had to sort of bring it in. I had to be really, I didn't know there were no books on motherhood. There's no books to tell you what to do. So only thing I knew is that I had to keep him safe. And how do I keep him safe? I cannot send him to an all-boys school, definitely. How do I keep him? And he was very, very intelligent. I mean, he is extraordinarily intelligent, got a high IQ. So how to use his IQ and how to keep him safe, So I had to search for a school which there were lesser children and there was more interaction with the teachers and things like that, because I said a smaller number will keep, it sort of contained. So, it was tough, and in a sense, because I set the rules. It was very clear. I told him when he was 5 or 6, I said, Mama loves you, and I think the sun shines out of every orifice in your body, so you never have to hide from me who you are. I adore you, So it took him time. So I think my whole toughness in the journey came where I had to find the proper educational institution for him, to see that he was not bullied, was not beaten, because I think they bring out a certain type of, I remember once, even in this highfalutin school of his, one of the teachers said, oh, you're such a pansy. And I said, take it up. Go to your principal. Taught him to see his rights as an individual also. How did I do it? Tu sab kuch samajhti hai ma, I don't know how I did it. It came with a very, very inert feeling of being a mom. I cannot describe that feeling.
That's amazing, Ruby. I mean, considering that time when you were 18 to have, and when you had your children at 23, I'm sure times are different now, but even now, for a parent to understand and accept.
They still ask. I was gay shamed, They used to say, because you are so, you are so out there and you're so dominating and all that, he's become gay. Excuse me? How does that work? Send him to play football with your husband. Send him to, fly kites and other such manly sports.
But amazing. Thank you, Ruby. That's such a beautiful start to the whole conversation. Amma, what's your...
I think, at every stage, first of all, I think motherhood is not a gentle thing at all. It's fierce. Yeah. It's very primal, because what you feel for your child is so... There's this emotion which is so intense. You don't obviously show that, you're Bhadrakali protecting your child, but but that fierceness and that emotion is there. And the challenge, I think, that you face is that you don't know at different stages of that child's life, are you doing the right thing to bring that child up in the way that he or she has to be brought up, in my case, my sons. And at every stage it was, is this the right thing? Am I doing the right thing? Am I not? When they were children, am I doing the right thing? When I lost my older son, I didn't know whether I was doing the right thing for the younger one, to get him out of that pain. When he became a teenager, I wasn't too sure whether I was doing the right thing in, when I used to tell him to be open, to be fearless, to be free, to talk without fear. I didn't know whether I was doing the right thing. When he became a man, and I had to, let go and send him out when he went abroad to work, I wasn't too sure whether it was the right thing to do. It was very scary. And also because of the fact that he was the only one left, it was all the more scary. And then, at every stage, I think a mother is thinking and all the time whether she's doing the right thing. I think that's the biggest challenge, at least from my perspective. At a point of time, I think then you feel that you've done well by the person, and then you finally let go, but you never really let go. There's always there's always that little thread that you're holding back because you're never going to let go completely. But I think as long as you live, that is there with you.
It's like your identity.
Yeah.
I mean, you can't let go of the motherhood identity. I think everything else becomes phase.
Estrogen. Oh, absolutely. With a little touch of progesterone.
Yeah.
So Dr. Aloma is not one and not two and not three, but six children.
I often feel like the old woman who lived in a shoe with so many children. I didn't know what to do. Yeah. Actually, it all started when you said it's a primal thing to hold on to your kids. But believe me, by the time the third one comes along, the primal feeling goes out of the window. Yeah.
Half the third one, probably.
But let me put it this way: 6 children, yeah, but they were by choice, not by accident. Maybe one or two they might have been by accident, but we had our 3 children. We had 6 children of our own, and we also had 9 foster children. And so 9, so that makes, how much is that? 15. So there have been 15 children who have been through our home, and many people asked us. It was not easy because I'm a doctor by profession, and I worked all along. And in between, I even toodled off to Australia to study. I have a very good husband, yeah, and an even better mother at that time, yeah, who took care of the kids. But it wasn't always easy. Raising a big family means you have to have certain priorities as well. And very often, I think I should add here that 3 of my children are biological and 3 of my children are adopted. But we have 6 children in our family. And I always believe that a family is not made by blood alone, but a family is made by relationship. And we are one family. And they say, how can you love all 6 of them? I mean, plus 9 of them tootling in and tootling out again. And you don't love your children equally and divide it up, but you love your children differently for who they are and what they are within your family. And I think that's what it was. And I think when you have a large family also, to a great extent, there's a lot of sharing, there's a lot of helping each other, there's a fighting like you wouldn't believe. And they do things together. We were always a large family. We went out anyway, we needed a bus. And we always had about, I think, six helpers in the house. Clothes were like washing. We need to put a pile. They had to have our own dobi. But today people ask me, don't you? Our house was like Grand Central Station. People came in and never went out again. They just stayed. And today people say, but you must miss the family. And I say, sure, I miss them. I love them to come and then I love them to go. I'm being honest, yeah? We also have 8 grandchildren, and number 9 is on the way. So it looks like my children are, well, they were brought up well, yeah. well, 6 kids. Oh, I forgot to add, 6 kids, but only 1 husband. Yeah. And
That's a man you all like to be.
yeah, and somebody once asked me, very, very rudely, you have children? So I remember I said 3 biological children and 3 adopted. And I said, yes, I have children. How many do you have? So I said, I have 6 children. And she said, same father? I said, no, 4 different fathers. She got up and she sat across the room. Well, that's my story in a large nutshell.
Great. Aloma, truly a lady of the heart. Mom, what's your...
Okay. I don't know what to say. I think God was very kind to me. I had a beautiful motherhood. Initially, when I was getting ready to receive Sahil, that was the toughest time of my life because I think, I got married at the age of 20 plus, and in 1.5 years, Sahil was ready to come. And at least me, I was just not ready to receive him, being from very protected family, we didn't even know how to look after the kid. We had a family where all the kids were there and parents are looking after. Actually, the elder one is looking after you So you don't realize all that. And suddenly I'm all alone as an army wife, living away from home, not having anyone around to guide you, and suddenly get pregnant. By the time you realize and you are pregnant. And I was just not knowing how to handle it. And that was the toughest time of my life. But after having him in my life, it had changed my life completely. Initially, I didn't know that I'm being honest, that what should be my love towards my kid. Because it was a very strange feeling. I was mentally, I think, just not ready to accept him or receive him. But I think in a month's time, things started changing, you know. I had a cesarean, so that was also a little tough time. But when I started recovering and started getting good health, and he was around, it was a beautiful experience. Maybe because my husband was very supportive, and in army you get a lot of help. That is another thing. And he was a doctor. So there was a huge support, health-wise and everything. At that time when, we were getting ready for Sahil, we both had decided that we just have one kid. Because I was just not ready for that one kid also. And I said, whatever. And so she always supported me in everything, whatever I'm saying. And he'll say, yeah, it's perfectly fine. If you want one kid, we'll have one kid. But in 2.5 years' time, my mind started changing. I said, no. It was so difficult for me to say, I want a second kid. I said, but Sahil needs company.
What a loss it would have been to you if I had not come into your life.
She does everything with you.
Seriously. So, with both the kids, the experience was so different. Swati was welcomed hugely. I was so well mentally prepared. The circumstances were very different. So she was posted in MH, and I was like a youngest mother there, and all the ladies were busy looking after me, Swati, and Sahil, and all that. So it's been very, very nice experience. The only thing which, there was very different when I was bringing them up. With Sahil, I was always wanting, or my expectations were too high. Always. And lately, I felt that it was just not required. Why do we expect so much that academically they should be well? They should be the best. In a sport, they should be the best. Personality-wise, they should be the best. He should be tall, handsome, and good-looking. Too many expectations you have. With Swati, Sushil and me, we both were cool. And she was. And what I experienced and what I learned, we were not behind her life that she should be doing the best in the class, and she was doing automatically. So these are the experiences which I feel I didn't do the right thing. Pressurizing.
We all do that.
We all do those mistakes.
With Alisha, she's goody gumdrops. Adnan is a battamiz fellow. But he does, I was very, proper with Alisha. And with Adnan, he grew.
Yeah. But honestly, I didn't put much of the effort to teach them something, or, all the time people keep telling me that, you have brought up your kids so well. I say, honestly, I didn't take any effort. I don't want to take that credit. The only thing which I can understand is children adopt what they see. Correct. So I think they have just adopted those values, what Sushil and me were following. So I think that's my experience. And it's such a beautiful journey having Swati and Sahil around. And especially in my circumstances now, it's amazing.
Tanvi? It's your take.
Yes. So listening to all the experienced mom here, I feel that I'm definitely a few decades, later. I feel that I was frankly a very well-informed mom. I took the decision to become a mother very late in life, like in my early 30s. I decided
Late in life.
No, not late, as in, conventionally.
They're just there to make us feel bad.
No. Don't. So contrary, listening to it, I would say that my daughter is 5. So I was in my mind, I was very clear of one thing, that what I am going to do when my daughter comes. I'm a mom who goes by the books. So, Google is there. So that's everything for you. And one thing I was very sure, and 5 years down the line, I still feel that my only agenda was that I am not here just to raise a child. I'm also raising myself as a mom. So I knew that, the things, the concern, the hormones, etc., would take care of the daughter. But I always was very sure that I do not want to lose myself in the process. So whatever I'd like, getting back to work, maybe, pursuing my creative Instagram page, creating content that side, focusing on myself, the way I look, the fitness aspect of it. Like, I was like bloated and was like 25, 30 kgs when I was.
Just to make me feel.
No, I'm not making you feel bad. It's just like, I never lost the focus on myself. That I was very sure of.
I'm making Instagram eyes at you. I'm
Instagram.
rolling them
Of
out.
course, I had to have that image of that Santoor mommy, right? So I had to do that. But no, nevertheless, it was a very conscious choice of, having outsourced the help. And luckily, when you're saying that you had help around and everything, I had my daughter when I was like 37 weeks, just me and my husband. Water broke in the night and we were running and we knew nothing. Neither we had parents around. It's just me and my husband. And we just figured it out. Like, I would say that we are very hands-on parents. And right from day one, like, our parents live in different cities. So right from day one, we were very sure that we don't want your help. Like, you're there, nice, but we'll try and manage and we'll learn on the job. So that's what we did. And yeah, I think we're doing decent. And yeah, for me, my biggest learning till now, for me as a mother, is that I wouldn't want to lose myself anyways, and I'd want to continue doing things, and I'd want my daughter also to see me that way. So now she was just back from her school, and I just said, bye, mama has to go, she has work. She just waved me bye, and then she was again back to her work. So setting that expectation right, that mama has a life beyond a mother. So setting that expectation right, and just because I feel that, 10 or 20 years down the line, I do not want to have a moment where I feel that what if I had done, what if I had focused more on myself? I would have been on a different line. So I want to grow along with my child. I also want to have that, learning curve. My kid also grows along with me, and I also grow on my own journey. So yeah, that is
Amazing.
my limited experience.
I think one of the youngest moms on the table.
But also, just keep in mind, as your daughter grows older, she'll hope that journey becomes longer.
Of course.
But
of
I
course, of
thank you
course.
for sharing, because it has made so many things clear for me. My daughter also became a mom when she was 34, I think. And they're very clear. She's extremely so. I have to pull back in my expectations as a grandmother. Like, I was there when she was to go in for, but she wanted her husband. So it's the both of them, and for some time I felt extremely excluded, because my mother used to tapki mare mujhe bewakoof of the child. So there was a huge extended system that we had, which you can't, because they grew up with lots of cousins, and that whole thing of that socializing. But when I see with Alaya, it's like between her and her parents and the nanny, who I'm not allowed to say anything.
No saying nothing to the nanny. I mean, I say to my mom, you want to take a break, it's fine, but don't say anything to my nanny. Even if she offends you, please, she is my support system. Like, jokes apart. Yeah, just leave the nanny. I know, but
I really thank you for sharing, because I just was feeling very bad about it, but I know all of you are like that.
I know.
Self-centered.
Our generation is
Yeah.
like that. We
But it's
always
good.
scold our mothers, and we always.
But Ruby, Darren said, I like I said, I have 8 grandchildren. But even though I'm a doctor, even though I've been a mom many times over and a foster mom many times over, I've always taken that step back. I remember when I went to the US when my daughter had her baby, they came to me in the night, and the baby's got a perforated intestine. I said, what crap is that? And I said, why? They showed me the picture from Google. See, her diaper looks like that. And I said, fine, if that's what you think, I don't think it's that way at all. But we'll go to the emergency. You go to the emergency room, but I'm not coming. I looked at one prize idiot. But, you have to let your children make their mistakes. You have to let your children... See, okay, at the risk of getting clobbered by both of you, I think today's parents are much better parents than we ever were. I see my own daughter and the way she handles her little child, the way she talks with them, the way she's. I'm amazed. I would have had no patience. I would have said, "Stay quiet because I said so," or I would have said, one. Okay, no abused people here. Okay, and I think today's parents have a totally different way of raising children, which is relevant to the present time also.
No, I agree with you there, but I also feel that I was very different when I raised mine. Like, for example, when you know...
But it was different at that time.
Yeah, it did. But the generational difference, like there's a 10-year difference in my sister and me, 15 between my brother and me. So, the generational gap is quite a bit. But then I will learn after I have my 8th grandchild. First one.
Also, I must add here that the difference between my eldest son and my youngest daughter is 25 years. So I had children I parented children at 2 different generations. I'll tell you something about raising a special needs child afterwards.
Lydia, please.
So I have 2 babies. They're really small. One is 3 and one is 9 months. So I feel like it's been challenging. Also, the older one was a COVID baby, so it was completely new, very, very different isolation. So it was a little challenging because I also am like a go-getter. My mom has been a single mom, so she grew with us and she made us be very independent. So when I started my journey as well, I couldn't relax. When I was a mother, the first few months, I didn't realize how they say sleep when the baby sleeps and do this and do that. It just never happened. I remember we were allowed 6 months maternity leave, but I just went back to work in the second month because I didn't know what to do with my free time. So I've always been like on the go. So with the second one, however, like most of us learn, with experiences. My first son, it was a little different because I think in my age group, a lot of my friends were single, still getting married. Some of them, just dating. So, we were like one of the first couples that had a baby. And it was COVID and the world opened out post the first wave. Everybody was enjoying life. And then I had this baby in my arms and everybody was going out on holidays and partying every Saturday night. And I would just be on Instagram and like they say, you have FOMO. Every night I looked at my phone and I was like, oh my God, why did I have a baby now?
Excuse me, as older people, we also have FOMO.
Yeah.
With the capital FOMO, really? We also know that. We also Instagram say, she also went.
Yeah.
Ruby, you don't have FOMO.
Maybe I.
Biggest loafer in town. Yeah. Biggest loafer in town.
Ruby? Yeah. You don't have to insult me in front of the camera now.
Please. But the first few months were like that. It was a little tough. But now again, with this second baby, I feel like I'm so much more prepared. I've had so many experiences with the first one. And I honestly feel I really needed that support system over here because you have friends, family, and everybody pitches in to do their bit. So for me, that was really important to get back to like a career and, start work again as early as I could and continue basically, like she said, having a life, but also telling your child that, I'm not only a mother, I'm not going to be there all the time with you, but prioritizing between work needs and family life. So yeah, that's my 2 bits.
Great. So Ananya, I know you're not a mom, but I'm sure you have stories and experiences that so many mothers might have shared with you in your profession. You must be meeting so many young mothers. So maybe just a brief thought on the same.
Yeah, so I feel very inexperienced in the entire motherhood angle. But it's very interesting because I see a lot of varied perspectives. So I completely, from like across the table, everyone's experience that I've heard, I feel like I've related or worked with mothers of of all the generations, natures in that sense, because I work with people across different age groups from young, children to older adults. And believe me, I think because a lot of what I do is looking at things like how they approach food, their relationship with food, the way that childhood environment doesn't leave. That's one of the things that I feel like has really stuck with me, that sometimes we think that, okay, it's, maybe it's a teenager, it's happening right now. But the way those things carry on into adulthood, something as simple as like the tendency to overeat. which can then become something so much worse.
Or eating carbs.
Whatever
When you're
it might-
feeling low.
ha- there's coping mechanisms, emotional regulation, health, how you approach it, what value you give to it. So, of course, that's not all there is to life and to mothering or motherhood in that sense. But it's just one of those things from my lens in where I add value to people. I really see that impact. And I feel like there's so much, because sometimes I end up working with maybe, children from the same home. And just even though it's the same parents or obviously the same mother, the way they also have their different approach to it. So it really stands out how each child really is unique, even though they might be eating the same, the kitchen is the same. The parents will tell me, keep it simple. We can't do complicated things. We have enough going on. But our kitchen is the same. Help us out with for both of them. And potentially, in my case, they tend to be very active individuals. But the concerns might be so different, just in the little things. And then the mother will whisper to me on the side, for this one, can you just tell her to eat this a little more? Or can you just tell her this? And, I'll get these side messages from them. This one is doing okay. For this one, So it's just really, really interesting to see how it just pans out so differently. And I think I'm learning a lot, of course, from here. But yeah, I mean, I don't want to talk it all about my work.
No, I want to ask you a question, if I may. Because you did say that you work with body imaging and you work with... So I just wanted to know young mothers like this, when it's so conscious that they have to, look a certain way and be a certain way. I think it is... we also were, I mean, we definitely did... leave me aside. But the thing is that do you get a lot of mothers, young mothers, who feel terrible about the way they look, especially after they've had their kid or they've had cesareans and they can't do the type of exercise that they want to, because they're very unrealistic images of, like, say, a Kareena Kapoor or somebody looking all the way back over there, and I say, somebody sucked the fat out of you. But I mean, it is like the whole thing is the standards are very high and unrealistic. So how do you deal with that?
Absolutely, it's incredibly unrealistic, and there's so much pressure. And I think sometimes it is. So I work pretty much only with individuals, so then it becomes an entire journey with them. But I think some of the things that I try to communicate, like whether on my social media or with them, is how to make it your own. Like eventually, if it's not a way that's serving you, it's not for you. If it's taking a toll, because if we look at all those examples, whoever they are, 99 to 100% of the times they're paid to look the way they do. We have other roles, we have other duties. And
also as an actor, like I keep telling a lot of mums, because I work in a similar line, I tell a lot of mums that they're actors, okay? That's their job profile. They have 10 hours in the day to work out, to eat right. They have to look a certain way, walk a certain way, talk a certain way. So they have the time.
Tell them I was an actor. I'm an actor too.
Okay.
So as much as you think that I didn't, the whole thing is to look this way and still be and do what I love to do. So I thank God I don't look like her, because then I'd have to do things that she... So I get a lot of acting roles where I can express myself as an actor, being 5 feet 10 inches tall and 5 feet 9 1/4 inches broad.
I think there is a lot of pressures. The world that kids are growing up in today.
Injustice, maybe 5 and 7.
I think the pressures are incredible, especially the world in which kids are growing up today. And I feel like one of the things that I am noticing as a trend, obviously, I'm very, very inexperienced in all of this, but is that honestly, like I get scared sometimes, potentially when I have kids in the future as well, that where is that sense of their own self-worth coming from? There is so much of external validation. Mothers, it's just about, what they want to get back to versus the new world that they're in. So, of course, it's a balancing act. Of course, it's a lot of different priorities. But I feel there is, especially because, again, with athletes, and it's not uncommon for athletes to have body image and all of those concerns. They're typically type A personalities. They are go-getters. They are trying to do everything. They are trying to achieve everything. How do you actually do that in this world?
I think I have a point here.
Yeah.
If I may say so, Ruby knows me well, Manjul too. I have a child, she's now 23 years old, and she's extremely disfigured because of a genetic disease that she has. And she has met with a lot of discrimination in school, on the street, wherever, And I'm amazed at that child. When she was in school, everybody was entering a fashion show. And she said, came home and she said, Mama, she says, I'm joining the fashion show. And I'm saying to myself, God help me, God help her. She's going to a fashion show. And I said, yeah, okay, go ahead. You know, she strutted her stuff on that ramp. And as she passed me by, I was taking a picture. And I had tears streaming down my face. What up, behave yourself, she said. You know, Nisha. And she walked on. And today she works, she's blind. She's a very little eyesight. She's extremely disfigured. Ruby knows her. And when she was interviewed by a reporter once who asked her, they said, you know, don't you blame God for the way you look and the way people treat you? She says, no, I'm not a victim of what everybody else thinks. What everybody else thinks of me is not my business. Also, she said, God does not make mistakes. I am not a mistake. And she works with Target today. She's finished her degree in business. She got a first class. And she goes everywhere. She knows people. Yesterday at a restaurant, a child got very scared of her because of her eyes and all that. And she just waved at the child and said, hi. And the child did, hi. You know, and the thing is, I think a lot comes from, if I may just say so.
Yeah, I think
a lot
it
comes
is-
from the way you were raised also.
Exactly. So I think that all the things that you young people say that, you know, we have a life and we have to go, so did we, but we did it in a different way. We had to accommodate. For example, if my mom said something, I had to accommodate. I couldn't tell her, hands off. She's got the nanny. Don't say that. That wasn't a choice, you know, but we did. So you've been brought up by a single mom, I heard you, and the way you bring up your children is because you saw that. You saw something that you're able to do it, right?
Also, I think this whole nanny thing, you know, therein my children also learn something else. Because, you know, don't say a word to my nanny, because if my nanny goes, I can't go back to work. And children note everything. Children are watching whatever you do. And believe you me, when your child is 18 years old, she will tell you, but yeah. But again, to come back, it all depends how you raise your child. I do believe, if I say so with humility, that my husband and I raised our child with a good self-image of who she was, not how she looks. And I think that's a
See,
big
all of us
lesson
are
that-
professional women. We
that
all
have-
work, we all do
Yeah.
things. We had nannies, but we didn't have them solely. We made a support system for ourselves. If it meant even the neighbor, you know, even our neighbors, like, you know, Manjul says that, you know, they were, see, my parents came from two different backgrounds. My mother's half Pathan, half French, and my dad was Bengali Brahmin. And of course, just to be difficult, they got married in 47. So there was all types of things, you know. So I didn't grow up with any family. I had no uncles, aunties, mamas, chachas, cousins. So now when I sit with my sister and we have this gaggle of cousins and I see my same nanny wala daughter and the nanny wala cousin and all of them sitting, this gaggle of cousins, and my sister and I say, we haven't done a bad job, you know what I mean? Because we grew up with nothing, no support system at all. But we grew up with spectacular parents, you know, and I say that now because I'm a product of my environment completely. I can say, and I can have TED Talks, and I can talk to people. I'm constantly talking to youngsters and saying, I'm 5 feet 10 inches tall and 5 feet 9.25 inches broad. I walk the ramp. I endorse products. What the hell is wrong with you, you know? So other skinnies are drinking nimbu pani. I am eating pizza, and then I walk on. So the question is what you feel about yourself. Even to be an actor, even to do... I crossed many boundaries, like from a lawyer to become a stand-up comedian. I made it so that you cross the boundaries and then are available to be. So all the women here are extremely powerful women. And we did it, we all went back. This is what I want to say. We all went back to work. But we went back making serious adults like you guys. You know, you guys are the product of what we have done.
Also, one more point. Grandparents should have some influence in their grandchildren. There's a great influence which is positive.
So I think I think the essence of this is this: there's no right or wrong.
No.
There is one aspect is to move with the times, and some present times require us to be a certain way, and I think in a sense, basically it should work for your unit. It should work for your yourself, it should work for your partner, and it should work for the unit you've created for yourself. And I think, in a sense, with the varied and some, really hair-raising stories, some really emotional stories that we've heard across the panel, it just goes to show that do what works for you. Find your path and, I think pursue that. And that can only be done by an individual. So, Ruby, I wanted to ask you, hormonal shifts after birth can be a wild ride. Considering you're in the world of laughter, was it challenging to always see the funny side? What was your journey with mood swings and just the overall toll that the hormones take?
Okay, so soon after I became a mother, I was, I was at in between. I wanted to get back to work. I had 2 children. And most of the time, we couldn't afford to have nannies. We were like garib. And bringing you all up, all of you will identify. And the thing is that I became a stand-up comedian much later. And but I was always the funny girl. I had words in my mouth. I was, I was professional as a lawyer, so I found that helped a lot. Mood swings so terrible that my husband felt most. Many shirts were torn, and the thing is that nobody actually acknowledged that there is something like postpartum blues, And as in the side conversation we were having, you said we went through a lot. We did. Tough birds we are. We went through a lot, and we didn't have, some of us would believe, like, as I said, 10-year difference between my sister and me. So it's like, nonsense, But yes, there were mood swings. And now I have no estrogen, so I don't care. I say, aao to aao, jao to jao.
No, but it's definitely hats off to the women of that generation. I think there's a resilience you all carry, which is missing to somewhere. I feel it's missing in our generation. A lot of the youth today feel they're very entitled. They also, there's a sense of giving up very easily. It didn't work, give up. It's not working, find alternatives, run. And I think what you said kind of, blends with that concept so well.
Yeah. The thing, my only advice would take it out on your husband. Tear his shirt. Send him. Let it be.
So we did briefly talk about this with both of you, but there is definitely a huge societal pressure to bounce back quickly, and it can sometimes become very intense. So how can we combat unrealistic expectations surrounding postpartum weight loss? And what advice would you give to young new mothers to do it in a manner which is moderate, which is balanced, and which is not extreme? Because a lot of the extreme then tends to lead to mental, emotional, a lot of different changes. So what I would like to hear from both of you, what your take is on this.
So, because I myself am a mother, and I went through a lot of with my first baby, I did go through postpartum depression and anxiety, which takes a big toll on you. And being a nutritionist, there is a demand to look a certain way when you go back to work. So being from the client's perspective and a nutrition's perspective, I felt it, because I was like, I need to look a certain way. I can't be overweight and, give advice to people. It played on my mind. But for my clients as well, it's very, very important to explain to them how the body works. And in the first 9 months, I tell a lot of my moms, you took 9 months to give birth to a baby. You need to give yourself at least that much time to get back, right? So it's also understanding the hormones. You want to feed the baby well. You want to be in a better space of mind. And I think for many people, we have to educate them. We don't, in our company, we talk about not nutrition, we don't talk about diets. We talk about nutrition plans, because you can do multiple diets, but they're not going to benefit you. Here we want to educate people on how to balance your meal better, how to eat right. So it's not about starving yourself and, giving you a strict plan or a detox plan, high fat, low carbs, to sustain, because that's not the way to go. Instead, educating people how to eat right, how to eat balanced, because even for like to feed your baby for milk production, you need a certain amount of calories, and it's not all about the looks. So I think that's very, very important. Like we say, society has raised the standard about, mums bouncing back. And I see so many women abroad, they, like in the 3 weeks, they're starting to work out and all that stuff. And here, to be really honest, I'm 9 months postpartum. I haven't exercised yet. And I'm thinking about it now. I'm like, no, maybe I'll try. But so give yourselves that chance and enough time. That's what I tell most of my new mums that come to us. And don't be in a hurry, because you will get back as long as you're doing it the right way.
Great. Ananya, what's your thought?
I think just to kind of add on to that, I feel like education, understanding your own body, because each mother over here will know that their journey has been different, their body is different, and frankly, as someone who then comes in to give advice to you, you know your body better. So firstly, working along with what you already know. And honestly, I like to go dig a little bit deeper with everybody, questioning what bouncing back even is. What are you trying to get back to? You've had a life-changing experience, whether it was your first child, third child, or fifth. Yeah. So what is going back? I mean, you're not trying to, when we're 20, in our 20s, we're not being like, oh, okay, I want to look like I did when I was an adolescent. We might want to look like we were in college when we become a woman. So what is the standard we're setting for ourselves? Forget what society is setting for us, because society will keep giving us messages. So I think as mothers, as women rather, there's constantly expectations to what are we adding onto ourselves. And it comes back to like, if it's not benefiting us, what does it matter? I mean, I think what the side conversation here was like, you want to be a sane mother. You want to be and mothering is not then your only sense of where you get your identity. You have other roles, work, being part, or fostering other relationships. How can you be present in those, doing anything drastic or putting that undue pressure, like, so what, you bounce back and then what? It's also about what you can maintain. So I think looking at it in a long-term way.
Actually, bouncing back doesn't necessarily mean having a 24-inch waistline. What it really means is coming back to being healthy and fit.
Absolutely.
And fit and healthy. That's what
and that's something that I feel like can look different across different stages of life. So being able to acknowledge and accept that, because that can be a very hard pill to swallow. And obviously, me being then, not a mother over here, not gone through those changes, it's much easier for me to say it. But it is something that I feel like a lot of, eventually life teaches us. I've seen that through other people's journeys.
Great, thank you. But even know
We had dinosaurs at that time, so it was not possible.
So they were taken for an X-ray, and I was told, oh, it's twins. Physical features don't necessarily make you the most beautiful person.
Ruby loves her. I adore her.